Hello, everybody. This is Kirk Steinhoff. I'm the owner of ValuTrack. Wanted to thank everybody for attending our webinar along today with BarTender, with the team from BarTender. I will today give a quick overview on ValuTrack, and then Lee Stevens. Lee, you can introduce yourself.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Lee Stevens, Senior Sales Engineer with Seagull Scientific out here in bright and sunny Seattle.
So with that, we'll get going. We're going to do a couple of quick slides on ValuTrack. Oh, but before we do that, just a couple notes. Any questions that anybody has today, feel free to put them in the chat, and then we'll address them at the end of the webinar. And the recording of this webinar will be sent out to everybody tomorrow. So anyone that couldn't attend, or if you'd like to re-listen to it, everybody will get a copy of this tomorrow. I guess just two quick slides. I just want to give everybody a quick update on ValuTrack, because we as a company have expanded our portfolio quite a bit, and a lot of our customers may or may not be aware. We are known for our barcoding technology, the solutions such as BarTender, such as Zebra, and a lot of other really great solutions in the auto ID arena. But we also do a lot with networking. We have some great partners there with Extreme and Cisco, Mox and Cradlepoint. And we've just brought on, and we're staffing up people in the security arena, both cybersecurity with Clarity for OT and CrowdStrike for IT security, as well as Bosch for physical security. So that's something people may or may not be aware that we supply, but we do quite a bit in both those areas, as well as the last one is our IoT technologies with edge electronic shelf displays and temperature monitoring and video and communication. So if you're not familiar with ValuTrack, is everything we offer, this is a really good summary. Next, okay. And one other thing I just want to mention is we don't just sell the piece parts. We work with our customers to create the entire solution from beginning to end, and we support our customers through the entire solution from the beginning all the way through post support and refresh, and so we do the entire life cycle management. So these slides are for you to look at. We've just summarized some of the technology, some of the solutions that we do supply, and but for today's purpose, the real focus is BarTender, and to talk about how to modernize your warehouse and modernize your facilities with BarTender's solution. And that's where I'll pass off to Lee, and then from this point he'll go through the 2022 BarTender.
Okay, thank you, Kirk. So just a real quick look at the agenda. If you don't know about BarTender, we're going to introduce you to it very quickly. And then we're going to talk about the things that you get with the BarTender 2022 Enterprise Edition, as well as then what are the best practices for trying to modernize your labeling processes. We're also going to touch on an important topic, and that is updating for existing BarTender users coming off of BarTender 2016, and what are some of the tools and things we have available to help you migrate up to BarTender 2022. And then my favorite part, which is the Q&A, questions and answers, folks. There is no such thing as too tough of a question. Please, and you can submit your questions by logging into the chat. You can start doing it right now, and then we will have a good Q&A session at the end of this presentation. So with that, why don't we get underway? So if you aren't familiar with BarTender, we are known everywhere. The fact is that if you are in a large company, you may not know BarTender, but if you look around, you will probably find BarTender in your company somewhere. If you are in a smaller company, while you may not have BarTender, if you talk to Other companies, maybe some of your competitors, some of the partners that you have, they know and use BarTender. And the reason is that BarTender is simply the most trusted labeling platform out there. That's why we are in the all 25 of the top 25 supply chain companies. We produce, this number says here, 50 billion labels a year. That we just got some new statistics. It's actually north of 60 billion labels a year now. We also have, in addition to the easy to use BarTender labeling software, we also have our drivers by Seagull. Now, these are free printing drivers that are specialized for the label printing market. We have over 7,000, actually almost close to 8,000 different drivers for every imaginable printer that is out there. And the truth is, folks, our drivers are one of the secret sauces to Seagull and BarTender. They are the best, and other companies, major printer manufacturers, their tech support people solve problems by telling their customers, go and install a Seagull driver, and the problem goes away. It's because we do the best. We are the gold standard in drivers, and we are the gold standard in labeling software. And then finally, we also, just last year, came out with our mobile apps for Android and iOS. So not only is BarTender the choice that you want to make for the actual workstations, it's also the choice for mobile printing. So with that done, let's look at BarTender 2022 Enterprise Edition and what does it involve. So the first thing that you need to know is with BarTender 2022 Enterprise, it still starts with the designer, BarTender Designer. It's award-winning. It is the simplest, easiest to use labeling design platform out there. If you can build a PowerPoint, you can build a label in BarTender. It is WYSIWYG, so BarTender is aware of the printers you're involved with. It knows what your capabilities are, and it is going to show you what that label is going to look like. We support not just black and white, but also color. We do Pantone. We support all of the GS1 symbologies. Basically, this is where you begin. And it is simply the easiest way of designing a label that suits your needs. But it's not just being able to design a label that's important. It's also being able to use it regardless of where you're at. So for that, we have the BarTender Print Portal, because not all of the time are you going to have somebody at a PC that's running BarTender, but you still need access to those BarTender labels. So with Print Portal, whether you are using it internally or exposing it to the internet, your people are able to log in using a browser. They can see those labels that have been created for them. They can enter the information and they can print them. They can execute a print either internal to your organization or local to where they are. Doesn't matter. With BarTender Print Portal, you now have expanded your access to for printing significantly beyond just your computer network. And then what I talked about just a few minutes ago, last year, we also brought out our BarTender mobile apps. And these are for both Android and iOS. They are Zebra validated, and they basically act as a wraparound front end to the Print Portal. So you don't need to have somebody trying to use Chrome on their or Firefox on their Android device or their Apple phone. They can use a BarTender app and have best of breed connection into Print Portal for being able to do that data entry, being able to generate that print. And with the BarTender app, mobile app, you can have them print to that Bluetooth printer hanging off of their lap, or the Wi-Fi printer that is sitting on the cart that they're rolling along. The mobile app gives you the ability to do printing on the go. Now, that's all of the label stuff, and that's all terrific. I mean, that's what it's really all about. If you can't produce the right label, the right place at the right time, then all of the rest of it doesn't matter. But with BarTender, you're going to be doing that. Now the challenge for an enterprise is, how do I manage all of these labels? If you're like most companies, you don't really have a designed labeling process. You have labels that just kind of grew. People said, oh, I need a label that looks a lot like this one, so I'm going to take that, I'm going to modify it and save it on my own system, and then I'll start using it. And as that goes on, you get what I like to call label bloat, where maybe you really only need 50 labels, but somehow you now have 500 different templates sitting out there. And it's getting harder and harder to make sure that the right label is being printed, because you have so many versions of it going on, and people are making unauthorized changes. And maybe somebody's messing around with a new idea and someone else grabs it and prints it before it gets a chance to be approved. And in a lot of industries, this isn't just a little bit of an embarrassment. This can be a legal problem. This can be an issue where you are no longer in compliance with industry or government regulations. Even if it's not a government regulation, there are big companies such as Walmart that if you don't give them the label they're looking for on that pallet, they will charge back. Think about it as fines, but basically they're going to cost you money because you had the wrong label going out. BarTender, we stepped up to this a number of years ago with two important tools that are available in the Enterprise Edition. The first is BarTender Librarian. Now, BarTender Librarian is our document repository. It sits inside of the BarTender system database. It hangs on to all of the BarTender templates, integrations. It can also support other kinds of files, such as image files and text files that you want to have pulled into your labels. It gives you a place that you have everything in one location. It's part of the backup process, and it simplifies the labeling control aspect, because you have everyone keeping everything in Librarian. And then that lets you use the other tool that we developed and came out with a few years ago called Workflow Designer. With Workflow Designer, which is that one that kind of looks like Visio, you are actually able to design a label life cycle. Labels have lives just like any living thing. They are born in the design stage, they get schooled, which is the reviewing process where they go through and get changed and brought up to the point they need to be. Then they get thrust out into life, and that's production. And what you want to make sure is that a label goes through those processes and then eventually is retired out. With the workflows, that's what you're able to do. You can control who has access to a label at what stage of its life and what can they do with it. This allows you to make sure that if you're working on a new label design, nobody can grab it and print it in production until it has gone through all of the review processes. Likewise, if a label has been removed from production, it's no longer available. So obsolete labels are no longer being printed. And you're able to control who gets to design it, who is doing the review, how is the review conducted. All of the kinds of things that are important for managing your labels and making sure that you are getting the right label, the right place at the right time. So we've talked about creating the labels, we've talked about how I manage the labels, but then there's the process of automating them, because not all labels do you want to have somebody hand entering. a lot of the times you have labels that you want to have tied into your existing business processes. And that's where BarTender integrations come in. The BarTender integration process ties any data source, be it an ERP, be it a LIMS, be it a scale or a barcode scanner, whatever can create and deliver data on one side. BarTender is able to receive that data and then figure out from it what label, what printer, what information, and when it needs to be printed. That's the part of BarTender integrations. And we have 3 different ways that that can happen. We have a super easy to use tool called Integration Builder. If you can build a spreadsheet, you can use Integration Builder to build a sophisticated integration. If you have your own DevOps team, we also support .k framework. And a couple of years ago, we came out with our full REST API. So you can integrate BarTender as closely and tightly into your existing systems as you want. All of this, of course, is designed to achieve that final goal, the right label, the right printer at the right time. So kind of high level overview on that. But if you're like most of us, we've had labels going on for a long time. I have customers who they have been using the same label template for 20 years. And the label template is still okay, but it's not necessarily being produced in the most effective way. And they want to take advantage of Librarian and all of these other things. Oftentimes they have literally thousands of labels, and they know they really only need about 10% of them. They just can't figure out which 9 to keep and which 9 to throw away and which one to keep. And that's where label modernization comes into play. So see if any of these challenges kind of ring a bell with you. I mean, is everyone actually producing the same label across the company? You know, are you getting dinged by big customers because you're not providing the label that they want, and they want it because that if they have that label on your stuff coming in, then it slides seamlessly into their own supply chain, and they don't want to have to stop and manually go through things. Are you getting mistakes? You know, are you having issues with your printers? Are you not sure what's being printed and where? And is all of this coming back and starting to cost you money? Well, if so, you're not alone. And this is what we at Seagull have been really focused on for the last several years, trying to help you get your arms around the labeling process and gain control over it. So what are the answers? Well, no real surprise here. You need to get your processes under control, and so you know who's doing what, where, and how, and why, and you have a common process going on. You also want to take advantage of some of the advanced features that have been put into BarTender over the last few years. We call it intelligent template design. That's where one template can look at the data that it is being told to print and realize that, oh, I need to use this particular barcode, and it needs to be in that part of the label, and the label needs to be oriented this way, and I need to go out and get some other information. In other words, BarTender actually adjusts and manages that label to fit the requirements as you have defined for it. So one label template can actually produce several different labels, but all of them the correct ones at the correct time. And the focus here is to do this through an easy way of connecting. And we have a way of connecting we like to call a clean handoff. Now, a clean handoff connection is where instead of BarTender extending tendrils deep into your existing processes and you have elaborate ways that you have to connect and set up maps and everything. Keep it simple. You have the data source, deliver the information in a standard format, and give it to BarTender. Now that format can be XML, it can be JSON, it can be CSV, it can be some other ones as well. Those are the three most common though. But then what you do is you simply have it delivered to BarTender either as a file that appears in a directory that BarTender's monitoring, or you can send it via a web service post, or you could use TCP socket connections if you need to deliver it extremely fast to, say, a production line printer that is directly applying labeling to a product or a product package. All of these ways and others BarTender supports, but the idea is the data is delivered to BarTender. Your data source doesn't know BarTender exists. BarTender knows data comes in, has no connection to the data source other than that. So each one is operating independent of the other. This allows you to make changes, to do updates in one without impacting the other. It makes for a great point of demarcation. That is, if something starts to not work, you can look at that data handoff. Is the data the same and correct data? Yes. Then I know to look at my printing process. Is the data not correct? Now I know I need to look into my data assembly process. This clean handoff approach makes it easy, makes it simple, and makes it reliable. So how do you get started with this? Well, the most important thing is that first item. You got to know what you got. So you go through and you're going to do a bit of an inventory, what are my labels? How many of them do I have? Where are they located? Where is my data for those labels? Sometimes you may not know what data you're actually using until you take a look at the label, and then you start to realize, oh, this data comes from this source, which means somehow it has to get here. This is part of that discovery. Modernizing your labels is a lot about becoming self-aware of your own organization. How do I store my labels? How do I manage them? How do I make sure that everyone's using the correct template? Am I producing large batches of labels? Am I producing them one or two at a time in a transaction by transaction type of process? Is it a combination? Do I need them mobile? Are people moving around? Do I have somebody, am I working in a warehouse and my people are walking back and forth all day long because they're having to go back to get the label, to go back out to slap it on the box that they just scanned? Oh, these kinds of things are important, because once you understand that, you can then start to think about where you want to go. You now know what it does look like. What would you like it to look like? Where should people have the printing occurring? Should it be in a common one centralized location and everyone walks back to it? Or maybe mobile printers, maybe a cart, maybe Bluetooth slung on the hip might work better. Or maybe I have independent, different stations located throughout my warehouse, and I need a way for the print to automatically be directed to the correct one. How do I get this data connected to it? Do I want to send everything down in a big batch? Do I want to do transactions? Is it a combination? How am I going to deliver that data? How much of it needs to be hand entered? At what point does all of this make sense? And what's my environment like? Who's going to control it? Who's going to actually manage it? Who's going to create it? These are all of the things that you start to get to a whiteboard and you start writing it out and you start developing it. Because once you have your vision, then you can build your roadmap. And that is something that we can, and ValuTrack can help you with. It's your vision, and we help you with the roadmap on how to get to your vision. Now, some of the things specifically Seagull can help you with is an assessment. We have been in the labeling business since 1985. We know labels. Labels are our passion, and we understand the labeling process. So you can very inexpensively tap on that literally hundreds of years of experience that we have as as all of us working together, and find out, okay, bring us in for a couple of hours and we will talk to you about your system, about your processes, about help you discover what's going on, and then tell you where we think you're at and how you might be able to get to where you want to go. From that, we can help you make that plan. We can help you with that roadmap. What PCs need to be updated? How do I control all of the printer drivers? Something I talked about at the beginning, but often gets forgotten. People will update their Windows software. They'll update their application software. You thought about updating your printer drivers lately? That's an important piece. And we're going to help you realize that and then figure out how to be able to do that in a controlled fashion. And then we can work with you on modernizing your templates. Everything from, here are the capabilities in BarTender, here are some awesome tutorials and online technical data that you can then use to create those intelligent templates I was talking about, to us giving you that training in person to online to do it, direct one-to-one, to even having us do it. We have a full template design team and we can help consolidate those labels. We often see a reduction of anywhere from 80 to 90% of the number of labels simply by using the intelligent template capabilities. And that obviously makes them far easier to control. And then how do I store it? How do I track it? How do I control it? How do I make sure that it's secure? So, sounds awesome. Yes, you want to get started. Probably the most important thing if you're an existing BarTender user is getting you updated to BarTender 2022. Now, if you are an existing BarTender user and you are on BarTender 2016 or earlier, and earlier you might know it as BarTender 10.1 or BarTender 10.0, or I run into some people with even older numbers. You know what's the best thing about BarTender? It's boring. It just works. And so people keep it running. But that also means you might have had that BarTender running for some time. And now all of a sudden you can't get that Windows XP platform or the Windows 7 platform anymore. And we are ending support for BarTender 2016 in just a couple of months. This is really important if you are under any kind of regulation, because if it's no longer being supported, you may no longer be compliant. So we need to get you updated. Now, here's the good news. If you have kept current on your maintenance and support with us, that update is free. It is no charge to you to move from BarTender 2016 to BarTender 2022. Now, there's some things, if you're having to make that big of a jump, there are some changes, but we are ready to help you. We have both the online materials, we've got the professional services help. You can certainly reach out through Kirk and ValuTrack, and they can set up a call with us where we can discuss what those changes are and what you need to do. And then if need be, we can even step in and help you remotely do that type of updating. So what if you don't have active maintenance? Well, again, talk to Kirk, get us involved. We're going to help you get back onto a supported edition of BarTender. And we have different ways. You're not alone. This is something we've been working with our customers on for some time. Okay, I've got my update. I've got my maintenance. How do I get my BarTender 2022? Well, right there. You can download the trial. If you already have an active BarTender license, downloading that trial, you can punch in your PKC that you currently have, and it will update for you as long as you have the maintenance being active. So we've given you the links here. By all means, give us a call if you have questions, and we will help you along the way. That top one is the 30-day trial. If you don't have BarTender, this is a full-featured Enterprise Edition trial you get to use for 30 days. You have access to our support portal. You can go in, go to the look for Getting Started with BarTender, and it will walk you through getting your first labels printed and start teaching you about BarTender. So reach out to those links. And with that, Kirk, I'm ready for some questions. Do we have some good questions that have come in?
Hey,
Katie.
Lee. Yep.
Yep.
Okay,
It's actually
Katie.
Katie who's going to be doing some of these questions right now.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got quite a few in here. Let's start with this one. We have a question on integrations and if we can have more than one integration because we have multiple business systems we're running.
Right. You can have pretty much as many integrations as you want running. So BarTender is not what I call a black box software. It's not this software that is limited to what it can do from the get-go. BarTender is a collection of tools that you get to use to build what you need as you go along. Now, that being said, there are times when you're going to realize, oh, I need to install BarTender on another computer because I'm running out of resources on this computer. I've got it, running a lot of integrations or maybe running a few, but they're very, very heavy. They're constantly in use. And that's fine. Katie, as you know, we don't charge by the number of installations of BarTender. BarTender is licensed by printer. So if your printer count isn't changing, but your use of those printers is going up, you can just keep expanding BarTender, and that's fine. It's not going to cost you anything else. So you got another question?
Yeah. And if anyone does have additional questions, 'cause I just saw a hand raised, just put it into the chat box. And we'll be able to see that question down there and make sure Lee answers it. So the next question we do have is, what type of serialization can BarTender support? Can it get pretty complex?
Oh, it can be extremely complex. So, or can be extremely simple. So BarTender basically builds the ability to serialize anything, really, any kind of data stream it gets in discrete elements. Now, what does that mean? That means you can take a long number that looks like a single number to you, and you can actually, with BarTender, kind of chop it into sections so that, and then each section could have its own serialization. So maybe you have one section that needs to be serialized based on maybe the date. And then another section that would be on the number of units produced during that day. And then another section that is dealing with something else entirely. But all of these then get put together into a single number. And you can do that with BarTender. We can do simple up or down by one number or one letter at a time to very complex things, to resetting under certain conditions, etc. I have yet to run into a serialization requirement that BarTender hasn't been able to be set up and run right out of the box on. So yeah, serialization, that's us.
Great. It does look like we have a question here from Alex McCambridge. I want to deploy an integration. If I deploy it from my computer, will other computer users need to have it deployed on their computer as well?
And the answer is only if you want to. So if you deploy an integration, then the printing can be generated at that same computer. Now, I think what you're asking here is if I want other people to be able to choose to print those labels, do they have to put BarTender on their computer in order to do that? And the short answer is no. You can set them up through the print portal that I talked about, for example. And with Print Portal, they would simply use their browser to go to the Print Portal site. They would, and this might be internal for you, and they would simply find the label they needed to print, and the data entry form would open up, and they'd get to enter in their information and make their choices about what printer, etc. And they don't need to have BarTender at all. Likewise, that's also available with the mobile apps too. Now, if they want to design BarTender labels themselves, then yes, you would install BarTender on their PC, or you would have them run it as maybe a remote desktop. We have customers that do that. The bottom line is that BarTender is inherently distributable and flexible. So it really can conform to how you need things to be done. We don't make you do things our way. We help you get your labeling processes so the design and printing are done your way with your design. And I see some more questions have been coming in.
Yes. We have another one that's in regard to mobile. So let's go along with that one. Can we add BarTender to a mobile device to make labels from a mobile device and then send it to a printer?
If what you mean is, can I use a mobile device to print a label through BarTender? Yes. And that would be, for example, the Print Portal solution that we've talked about, and you could either use the browser on the mobile device, or you could have the BarTender app loaded on the mobile device and do the printing that way. And I think that's pretty much your question there. I can't imagine somebody wanting to design a label on a mobile device, and we don't support that. But as far as being able to enter data and print it, absolutely. That's what the Print Portal and the mobile app are all about.
Thanks, Lee. Another question here. Are you familiar with ECI and JobBoss, who have an integral label within their software? We might be interested if we can integrate their data onto our bill of materials.
And yes, I know I have come across both of them in the past, and there are ways of doing the integration and being able to support and work with them. And that would definitely be something you would want to talk to Kirk about, and then get set up with a call with, well, Katie, with you and with me, and we can talk the details of it. We've helped many people with ECI and JobBoss.
I figured we had, Lee. All right, next question here. I have experienced that connecting to a SQL database table and views poses many challenges, specifically those using Epicor P21 platform. Can you elaborate or possibly confirm if SQL creates more challenges than other databases? That's an
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And if you're running into some challenges with Epicor, I'd encourage you to talk with them. Epicor is a partner of ours, and so they should be ready to support you. But aside from that, SQL databases itself, well, BarTender, we use MS SQL. When you install BarTender, you install SQL Express on your PC most of the time. And the BarTender system database, the librarian, that I mentioned, plus a lot of other things, our logs, etc., are all stored in MS SQL. So actually, we work with SQL quite extensively. Now, I'm not sure what the challenges that you're specifically running into. I see a reference here to the tables and views, and there are different ways of coping with that. Basically, when you're dealing with tables and views, you're trying to get the right data all onto a single flat table so that it can be easily exported, for example. And there are some techniques that might be done on the database side, but this would be one that I would go back and start talking to Epicor, and then perhaps bring us in if they're not answering all of the questions, and we can kind of start sussing that out and help you get to a good solution.
Great. Thanks, Lee. I think we have time for maybe one more.
Okay.
What printers are compatible with BarTender?
Oh, it's a great question, but I would put it this way: what printers are not compatible with BarTender? The fact is that BarTender is compatible with any printer that has a Windows driver, and doesn't stop there. Katie, as you know, we have developed ways of printing devices that have no Windows drivers, and it varies depending on the device and what you're trying to accomplish with it. But if it's got a Windows driver, rest assured we can print to it, even if it's not our driver. Now, our drivers tend to be the best, but there are some ones out there, for example, office type printers, maybe that inkjet printer that you have sitting next to your desk that is for general purpose use. We don't have a driver for that, but we work with the driver that it came with. So we can support any printer with a driver. And if it's a printer that there is no Windows driver on, contact us. It may be one that we have worked out another way of dealing with. So
Great. I think that rounds out the question and answers for us. Thanks, Lee.
Thank you, Katie. And Kirk, you want to take us out here?
Yeah, you want to just go to the next slide?
Yeah.
So I just want to thank everybody on the webinar for joining us today. Hopefully you have found this educational and you got something out of it. And the ValuTrack team is here for you to contact at any time if you have additional questions or you want to set up another meeting, or the other, we put some URLs here. You can come to our BarTender page at ValuTrack.com, which will give you more information on Seagull. You can also come to the link if you'd like to try Seagull for 30 days for free. We offer that as well. And then if you do want an assessment, if you want us to come on site, if you want us to, talk more details about your environment and what it is your needs are, we're here to do that as well. So please just reach out to us. If you go to sales@valutrack.com, that goes to a generic email that everybody sees, and you'll assured to be responded to. And I think that is all we had for today. Lee, thank you very much. You did a great job. Learned a lot here today. Katie, thank you as well. And I think that's a wrap.
All right. Well, thank you, Kirk. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Everybody have a good day then. Bye-bye.
Bye.